Hi everyone, it's Dr. G. I'm here to talk to you about theoretical approaches in sociology. So let's go ahead and get started. So a theory is a general statement about how some parts of the world fit together and how they work. It is helpful to think of sociological theories as roadmaps to understanding our social world. Each sociological theoretical approach provides us a different road with different scenery, but leads us to the same destination: knowledge. There are many theories within sociology, but three have risen to become the primary theoretical approaches. They are structural functionalism, social conflict theory, and symbolic interaction theory. So let's start with structural functionalism. And the first thing that I encourage you to do when trying to understand a theory, in any academic discipline, including sociology, is to look at the title, because hopefully the person or people that came up with the name of that theory did so in a way that somehow represents what the theory is all about. And we are fortunate in this case. The creators of structural functional theory did just that. So let's look at the words: structural, functional. The first thing that should pop out at you is the word structure. So in sociology, what do you think that we would be taking a look at the structure of? Society. So we're going to take a look at, well, how is society structured? How is it put together? The second thing that you should notice in the title is the word functional or function, which means to work. So what we can further see is that each of the components or things that help to make up society will, in essence, do things for society. All right, so what are some of the major building blocks of society? The major components? Well, I have some of them listed up on the screen. They include things like the economy, politics, family, religion, education, and the media. These are certainly not all of the major components that help to structure society, but they are certainly some of the most prevalent ones. As a side note, each of these are referred to as social institutions. All right, so this is how society is structured. A great way of thinking about this is to think about either your human body or think about a building. Our bodies are made up of many different parts, like our hands, our heads, our eyes, and our mouths, and so on and so forth. Or a building has a floor, a ceiling, windows, and doors. So each of these components or parts will do things for human beings. So our hands allow us to pick things up. Our feet allow us to get from point A to point B. A window will allow light to come in and fresh air to come in, and a door will allow people to come in and out of a room. Well, according to structural functional theory, society works exactly the same way. All of these things that structure society also have functions or things that they do. Some of their functions are called manifest, and that means that it is the primary reason why it exists. And some of the functions are latent or hidden. Let's take education for an example. What is the primary function of education for society? The primary function of education for society is to educate people, okay? Now, is that the only function of education for society? Certainly not. There are other functions. For example, another function of education for society is to socialize people, especially when it comes to young children going to, let's say, elementary and middle school. Okay. Another latent function of education would be to provide an opportunity for people to get to meet one another in college. And this could potentially lead to a relationship and possibly marriage. So what we could do is we could go through and look at how all of the structures, all of the components that make up society have multiple functions that they do. So when you take a look at the big system, and structural functionalism will have us look at society as a system, all of the parts are working together to promote solidarity and stability within society, okay? Structural functionalism is a macro level theory. What does that mean? That means that we are looking at the big picture. We are not looking at individual people. We are looking at large groups of people. For example, I asked the question earlier, what does education do for society? I did not ask the question, what does education do for you, or for Tammy, or for Juan? And there's a big difference there. So we need to remember when we use the structural functional theory, it is a big picture macro level theory. All right. All of these components that make up society work together. They're interrelated and interdependent. All right. So that means that if there is a change that occurs, let's say in the economy, that change will affect all of the other components that collectively make up what we call the B society. All right, let's move on and talk about the second major theory in sociology, and that's called social conflict theory. Again, I invite you to look at the title because the title gives us some information about what this theory is all about. And the key word is conflict. Unlike structural functionalism that sees society as a stable system with multiple parts all working together to create solidarity and stability, social conflict theory actually looks at how there is a lot of strife and competition within society. So in order for us to really understand this, what I have done on the screen is I have divided, I have created two groups of people within the United States, and this is important to know because if we were talking about another country, there would be different groups in the boxes that appear up here. But we're talking about the United States, and on the left-hand side of your screen, you see what I call the dominant or the majority groups. The people that fit into this group generally have more power, prestige, and generally money, though not all the time. On the right-hand side, you see what's called the subordinate or the minority groups. The people that fit into this box generally have less power, prestige, and wealth generally than the people on the left-hand side of your screen. So what happens? The people in the right-hand side of the box will compete with the people on the left-hand side of the box for what we call scarce resources: power, income, prestige, and education. In the United States, who fits on the left-hand side? Who are the dominant groups? Who are the majority groups? Men, Christians, Caucasians, those without a major disability, heterosexuals, English speakers, and those that are well-to-do. Who fit into the minority category group? Women, non-Christians, people of color, those with a major disability, members of the LGBT community, non-English speakers, and the poor. And so what we see with social conflict theory is that life is not fair. Resources are not evenly distributed. The people that fit on the right-hand side and in the box on the right-hand side generally face prejudice and discrimination, okay, and are not afforded the same equal opportunity as the people on the left-hand side. Now, is this to say that the people on the right-hand side are always discriminated against? They always face prejudice? No, that would absolutely not be the case. But social conflict theory is also a macro level theory like structural functionalism. So what does that mean? That means that when we compare women as a group to men as a group, we have hardcore scientific research that shows that women are generally discriminated against as compared to men, okay? So plenty of scientific research out there to support this. All right, so let's go on to the third and final major theory within sociology, and that's called symbolic interactionism. There's a major difference between symbolic interaction theory and structural functionalism and social conflict theory. And that major difference is that symbolic interaction theory is a micro level theory. Okay, so what does that mean? That means that now our approach to understanding our social world is to look at individuals or small groups of people, not necessarily looking at large groups of people, all right? So let's look at the title, Symbolic Interaction Theory. What does the title tell us? Well, we can pull the word symbol out of symbolic. So what is a symbol? The symbol is something that represents something else, all right? So a big part of symbolic interaction theory is all of the symbols that we humans create and use. And when you think about it, life is full of symbols, both tangible symbols like, let's say, a traffic light or a traffic sign, and intangible symbols like being a mother or a father or a teacher or student. That's all symbolic, and it carries symbolic meaning. We attach meaning to virtually everything in life. As we define our surroundings, we create our own reality, including what we think of others as well as what we think of ourselves, which brings us to the second word in the title, and that's interaction. We interact with other human beings. And when we interact with other human beings, we give meaning to the interaction that we have with them. So in essence, what we do is during all of our waking hours, when we are interacting with other people, we are assigning meaning to that interaction. We are creating our own reality, which probably will be different than other people's reality within the same social environment that we are a part of, okay? Which brings us to the definition of the situation. We are constantly and consistently defining things. This is good, this is bad. I like this, I don't like that. We may not be totally conscious that we're doing this, but again, all of our waking hours, everywhere that we go, we are constantly giving meaning to every social situation that we put ourselves into, okay? So symbolic interaction theory is all about giving meaning to our social world, to others, and ultimately to ourselves. All right, so that's a little bit about the three major sociological theoretical approaches. I hope that you have enjoyed this. Please come back and see a future video and continue the sociology experience with me. Thanks. Have a great day.